Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Just-in-Time Education, a podcast for healthcare HR from Lean Human Capital and Healthcare Source. My name is Megan Doherty and I am the Educational Content Specialist here at Healthcare Source. A few weeks ago, we published a blog titled, Are You Hiring Nice People? That was very popular. It seems to be a pretty hot topic that resonates with most healthcare HR professionals. So since it was such a popular topic, we have decided to focus our podcast today on the same issues. Today I have Rebecca McNeil, Senior Education Manager at Healthcare Source, and David Szary, founder of Lean Human Capital and the Recruiter Academy, with me today to weigh in on the importance of hiring nice people. So let's just jump right into discussing that. Rebecca, why do you think it's important that hiring managers start assessing the kindness of their candidates?
Well, Megan, that's a great question. I think not being so familiar with other industries outside healthcare, I will say from my perspective, this is an issue that really impacts healthcare specifically. And when hiring managers and recruiters are looking at the skills of the candidates that they're hiring, they have to think very carefully about the patient experience. How is this potential new member of our staff going to positively impact the patient experience and positively impact patient satisfaction? So whether we label it as a kindness factor or niceness or compassion, the way that these folks they're hiring interact with patients is very, very important to the success of the healthcare organization. So I think hiring people who have great demeanor, who are really going to put customer satisfaction as a top priority and focus on pleasing the patient and making sure they have a good experience is really critical in healthcare.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. So now I have a question for David. How can healthcare organizations create a more thoughtful hiring process to assess candidates for soft skills?
Well, I think a couple things, Megan. I think first off, it's, I kind of flip this a little bit. If we're looking for new employees that have compassion and kindness towards our patients, then what is our hiring process and how are we thoughtful and compassionate in creating an environment for them to be successful in their interview? I think we need to educate managers and everybody involved to say, we're bringing in candidates. So that whole candidate experience is one thing that pops to mind here. It's essentially practicing what we preach. If we want people to have compassion and kindness for our patients, then do we have passion and kindness for our candidates? So being more thoughtful and diligent. I'll give you for example. We had one I thought was the best practice. When they brought in candidates for interviews, they created this environment that was almost like a family room where they had these nice leather chairs and they had the coffee machine there, and they actually baked chocolate chip cookies so you could smell that as you walked in there. And I thought that was a real thoughtful thing that allowed them to come in and feel like they're at home. And I thought that was a wonderful way to create compassion and kindness for the candidate. The second piece to it is just this idea of having a thoughtful hiring process and making sure you have a validated tool up front that allows you to drive towards a more effective in-person interview. So I think those are two things that you can do.
Great. Thank you, David. So Rebecca, what is the best way to go about evaluating these kinds of soft skills?
Well, of course, I am a proponent of behavioral assessments. I do believe that that's a relatively quick way to implement a structured approach to evaluating more of those soft skills, such as compassion. Because using a tool, you already have some built-in resources that the tool should provide you with, such as structured interview guides. And, of course, it does score your candidates so that you're able to compare the folks that you're interviewing to top healthcare performers against skills like compassion. So where are they ranking? And I do think that's very important. But whether you're using a tool or more of a homegrown approach, you definitely need to consider evaluating those soft skills as some kind of part of your interview where you have a nice mix of, X% is more focused on technical skills and what's on the resume and what's their exact background, and the other percent is focused on soft skills, and you'll have to decide within your organization with recruiters and hiring managers working together who's going to assess what and what is going to be that divide. How much do you focus on soft skills versus technical skills? But the soft skills it has to be part of your interview approach, and I think that's the way that you can really evaluate the, quote-unquote, nice factor.
Great, thank you. So David, what types of questions should hiring managers be asking to evaluate candidates for the nice factor?
Boy, that's the 10-cent question, right? That's a difficult one. I agree with Rebecca. I think the first thing it starts with is ensuring that there is a good amount of time spent on trying to identify these. But with respect to questions, I'll be honest, I'm not an expert there. I now more than ever am a huge fan and believer in these validated assessment tools that you can use. I've seen too many situations where folks are not using those tools and then they implement these tools, like behavioral assessments. And it's just amazing the results with respect to employee engagement or HCAP scores going up. So exact questions, I'm not the expert. I would highly encourage anybody that's trying to get after or assess compassion or kindness or niceness that they would use a validated assessment tool that then allows to provide for analysis and to ask follow-up questions in a maybe structured behavioral-based interview in person.
Exactly. So Rebecca, how does a more structured interview process help when assessing candidates?
I think it helps in a lot of ways, but I think one of the areas is the relationship between the recruiters and the hiring managers, and helping your hiring managers use tools and resources that are going to create a better interview process. So, for example, when I was a recruiter working with different hiring managers in different departments, they each had their own style. Some of them were much more skilled at interviewing than others. It's really important to create a structured approach so that, your hiring managers still have room to be themselves and have their own approach to some degree, but they're all asking, the right questions, and they have structured interview guides in place so that there's some consistency to the interview process at your organization, which is why I think, again, a tool like behavioral assessments is great, because when those candidates take the survey online, it provides hiring managers with some data before those candidates come in for the in-person interview that they can then use to hone in on any areas of concern during the interview process. So it's a great way to create a more structured approach and make sure that your hiring managers are going to be well prepared to interview their candidates.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca and David. Thank you, everyone, for tuning into our podcast. Stay tuned for more just-in-time education.